Hi, today I wanted to take a little bit of your time to talk to you about writing job application materials like resumes and letters of application and those kinds of things. And I know that Chapter 10 obviously is taken out of order, but the reason I'm doing this is because last semester, just when we got to this, or a week before we got to this, there was a huge job fair on campus. And we always have a job fair in the spring. So I wanted to make sure that we got Chapter 10 done and you completed, created your resume, and were really comfortable with this before the job fair came this spring, so that if you were in the job looking for a job, you would certainly have your materials prepared for you. And even if you aren't looking for a job, it's definitely worth your time and energy to take your resume to the job fair and to have professionals look at it and see what you could tweak or add or that kind of thing. So there's a method to my madness. There's a reason that we're taking Chapter 10 out of order, and so let's get started. There's a process for preparing for the job application, and they follow these steps. Plan the search. Figure out what it is you're going to do. Decide how you're going to look for a position. Learn as much as you can about the organizations to which you will apply. And this is especially important because when you get into the interview and the company asks you, do you have any questions, you want to have done your homework and you want to have done some research so that you can ask intelligent questions and get the kinds of information that you need to have before you actually take a job. The next thing we'll do is draft a resume and application letter. Then you'll revise and edit and proofread the resume and letter. And hopefully your group members can help you do that even further a little bit later on in the course. You'll prepare for your job interviews, and then you'll write the appropriate follow-up letters or emails. So the first thing you need to do is a self-inventory. If you haven't done one of these, or if it's been a long time since you've done it, I strongly suggest that you do it now. There's the Virginia Education, or what is it, the Virginia Wizard. That's a great tool. And there's also in the websites, I'm sorry for my dog, just ignore Bogey, he's a brat. There are several websites that I've given you in this unit, and you'll see that there are various inventories that you can do there. It's really worth your time because it helps you kind of know what kind of jobs are best suited to you or will best fit your needs. You want to learn about the employers, who is hiring, and you want to prepare a resume and a job application letter. So those are the things that you want to do as you're planning your job. There are several ways to look for a job. You can look through college or university placement office at Thomas Nelson. We are closely affiliated with Workforce Development. They're an excellent resource. They're free. Use them. You can go through a professional placement bureau, also called a headhunter. These people work with businesses who are looking to hire, and they hire you for the business. So they kind of do all the legwork for the business. There's also published job ads, which we see fewer and fewer of these unless you're looking at a job site like monster.com or one of the, Indeed or something like that. But we don't usually see them published in newspapers anymore, not nearly like they used to be in the olden days. One good way to look for a job is to look at the organization's website. For example, I know if you're interested in getting a job at the shipyard, you can go to their website and they have all of the positions that they have all over the world as well as in Newport News. So it's quite helpful. The job board, that's what I was just talking about a few minutes ago. Connections on social media. With that, I think like LinkedIn, and we can, if you haven't set up a LinkedIn account, it may be worth your time or energy to do so. It depends on what kind of job you're looking for. The best way to get a job is through personal connections, and it may not be somebody that you know, but somebody that you know who knows someone that is looking to hire. So it's those connections, however distance they are, that are really great for helping you to get a job. I think that the least productive way of getting a job is through an unsolicited letter. It works occasionally, but pretty much it's kind of a shot in the dark. So when you're getting ready to post, like to monster.com or Indeed, or you want to post your resume out there, you really need to think about it before you just pop it up there. You want to think about who has access to your resume. So for example, is it wide open so that everybody in the universe can see where you live, your telephone number, your email address, or is it just is it set up so that only potential employers can? Will you get notified when somebody is looking at it? The other thing to consider is if you're currently employed, can your employer see your resume? You may not want your employer, your current employer, to know that you're job searching at this particular time. So you need to think about who can see it. The other thing you need to think about is, can you update it at no cost? So if your address changes, your qualifications change, your experience, you complete your degree, those kinds of things, can you go ahead and do that with no cost? So one of the most important things, and this is the point in if we were in the face-to-face class, I would make everybody get on the computer and say, search yourself. Do a Google search of yourself. It is really important to do this on a regular basis, because with the proliferation of social media, you just never know what can be out there about you. I was working with on this particular point in my face-to-face class last week, and we were talking about it, and a young woman in the class has her Twitter feed open, and everybody can see that, and she is quite political. And I said, well, for your friends to see your political beliefs, that's okay. However, a potential employer may have very different political beliefs, and you may not want him to know how it is, what your beliefs are, until you get to know the person for a bit and can feel them out. So you really want to be careful about what the universe can see. One of my hints is, have a professional Twitter feed, or have a professional Facebook account, but do something that you can have more than one account. So have an account that you want to use for business, and that's the place that you would send employers to, or potential employers, and use that as a way for people to get to know you better in a professional manner. Always follow through with what you say you're going to do, and help others make career connections. So for example, if you're telling everyone you're looking for a job, and you want them to help you out with their connections, but do the same thing. If you have a friend that is hiring engineers, and you have a colleague who's an engineer that's looking for a job, by all means network with these people, because that's the opportunity that you will have. They'll return the favor when the time comes around. So make sure you do that. Reasons to write your own resume. A lot of people, especially I find that my retired military have professional resumes, and those are nice. The problem is, you know yourself better than anyone else. That's number one. But the number two, and what is I think the most important, is that for every job that you apply for, you should tweak or edit your resume so that it meets the requirements of that job. I'm not saying make things up, but what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're using the buzzwords that particular job position is looking for. So an attractive resume has generous margins, lots of white space. It uses very clear type, and it's a balanced appearance with a clear organization. When you are organizing or thinking about organizing your resume, you want to pay attention to consistency. So for example, if you say college education, Thomas Nelson Community College, comma, Hampton, Virginia, comma, and the beginning date and the date of graduation or anticipated graduation, then everything else that you list for your jobs, you want to follow that same format. So you want to make sure that you have a consistent format and that you use bold headings and larger type for headings, and use that same consistent organization throughout it, so that someone who's looking at your resume can quickly find the information that he or she seeks. Your resume must meet these standards. It must provide clear, specific information without generalizations or self-congratulation. And that is super important. What I find when my students do this assignment, they generally just say cashier. McDonald's cashier from August 2015 to August 2016. Well, that's nice, but what else did you do? Maybe you worked many shifts, you were promoted to shift supervisor, or you dealt with difficult customers, so you developed a strong skills in customer relations and those kinds of things. So think about what you have actually learned and accomplished in your position, and give as much detail as and information as possible. But don't say, you were the best employee, but if you got an award like Employee of the Month 3 months in a row, well, by all means, post that. That's important information, because it shows a potential employer that you're really well thought of, and that you worked hard, and that you went above and beyond what was expected of you. You always want to make sure it's free of errors. If you have misspellings, incorrect word usage, your potential employer is just going to put it in the trash can, because the problem that we face today is that there are few jobs and a lot of applicants. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your work is above and beyond reproach, so that a potential employer doesn't have a real easy reason to just put your work in the trash can. And of course, it must always be honest. You don't want to say that you did something that you didn't do. That can always come back and bite you in the patootie and get you in serious trouble. Chronological resume, which is the kind that most of us do, is you begin with identifying information, which is who you are, how to contact you, an objective or summary of qualifications statement. Many people write objective statements, and I find them to be really redundant and boring. My objective is to get a job in HVAC. Okay, that's nice. Obviously, that's your objective, because otherwise you wouldn't have applied for this position. So I like using a summary of your qualifications, because, especially if you have strong qualifications, because that's the first thing that the employer is going to look at, is that objective or summary after the personal information about you. And so that's a way to just really emphasize what it is that you know how to do. Next, you want to provide your education, and your education can be, your Thomas Nelson education, your high school education, any kind of special schools you've gone to and completed, anything like that. And then your employment history. Put in everything that is going to be relevant. You don't have to list every single job that you've ever had on a resume. You want to list those jobs and highlight those things that you have done that apply most to the ad. But you don't want to leave long periods out unless you can justify. Like for 2015, I was a full-time student at Thomas Nelson and was not working. That's fine. You don't have to put that in the resume, but be prepared to tell a potential employer that that's why there's a lapse or a gap. Maybe you were a stay-at-home parent for a while. Make sure you do that. Can explain any gaps that you have. Interests and activities, don't make these, again, particularly political. Make these more generic, because it's best to just err on a general side with these, because you don't know what somebody else's interests are, or and you don't want to have them biased against you before they even get to meet you. References, if you're going to use references, different applications different ads will ask you for references. If it asks you for references, by all means, list them. Always list the person's first name, last name, telephone and or email address. But before you do that, make sure that you check with that person and make sure that it's okay. for you to use them as a reference. And always give them a way out. So for example, if you're asking a professor for, would you be okay for if I used you as a reference for this job, say, I know you're really busy, so if you can't do it, I understand. However, I'd like to use you as a reference. And that gives the person the opportunity to politely decline if they just don't feel like they can do so comfortably. So do that. If references aren't required, but you have some really great ones that you've already talked to, then by all means you can post them. You can also say references available upon request. Any of that is just fine. So when you're making a statement of objectives, state only the goals or duties explicitly mentioned or clearly implied in the advertisement. Don't talk about other stuff, even though those may be your goals, but if it doesn't apply to the position, it's not relevant. Focus on the reader's needs, not your own goals, and always be clear and specific. In the education section, you want to include your degree, the institution, the location of the institution, the date of graduation, and any information about other schools you've attended. At this point, people always ask me about GPA. It's a good thing to put your GPA up there if it's impressive. However, if it's not 3.5 or above, I would probably consider not putting it up there because it's not really going to help you. It's not necessarily going to hurt you, but it's not a bonus. Well, here I jumped ahead. Grade point average. Compile a list of courses that are relevant to the position. Describe any special accomplishments, awards that you received in school, anything like that. Again, that's appropriate for the position. Present your details about your history, your skills, any equipment you use, money you handled, documents that you worked on, personnel that you supervised, clients that you worked with. Those are all the kinds of buzzwords that employers are looking for. They're looking to know what your skills are. They're looking to know what kind of equipment you're familiar with, any kind of technology that you know. Those are the kinds of things that are going to be helpful. With your interest in activities, community service organizations, hobbies related to your career, sports that might be socially professional, and any kind of college-sanctioned activities. So, for example, if you were on the baseball team or the basketball team at Thomas Nelson, you would certainly go ahead and list those. When providing references, I've already told you this, but choose your references carefully, give them an opportunity to decline gracefully, and let them know that you are, going to use them, so they have a heads up to be expecting someone's call. Some resumes contain additional information if you have any specific computer skills, military experience, language ability, if you're willing to relocate. Those are all pieces of information that can be beneficial when you're looking for a position. We've already done that one. That looks like we've gone over this, so we're going to skip through that one. Electronic resumes. These are the resumes that you submit online. They can be attached in an email message, they can be a text resume, they can be a scannable resume, or web-based resume. And it just depends on what kind of service you're using. You want to use, when you're printing out or a scannable resume, you want to make sure that it is good quality laser printer so there's no muddiness on the paper, that you're using a very white paper. You don't want to fold a resume that's going to be scanned, and you want to use a simple sans serif typeface. Serif is these little lines here, let's see, that are by on the sans serif, these little lines here that go up and down. These are called serif, and you want to use sans serif which means without, which is the typeface that I've used throughout this presentation. This presentation is written in sans serif typeface. You want to use a single column format, wide margins, and you use the space bar instead of the tab key. When you're drafting a job application letter, and I'll tell you that in my years of teaching this class, the resumes seem to be easier for students than the job application letter. And that's really problematic because the job application letter is the first thing that human resources or whoever has posted the position is going to look at. They're going to look at that first. So you need to make sure that that is very well written, very specific, and relevant, because the job of the job application letter is to get your potential employer to look at your resume. They're not going to look at the resume first, they're going to look at that letter. So you want that letter, that's your opportunity to get their interest and get their attention. So that's what you really need to focus a lot of attention on. The introductory paragraph has 4 functions. It identifies your source of information, where you got the information that the position was available. It identifies the position you're interested in. It states that you want to be considered for the position, and then it explains what else you're going to talk about in the rest of the letter. The concluding paragraph should refer to the resume, have a polite but confident request for an interview, and include your phone number and email address. So you want to say, as you will see from my resume, I am quite qualified for this position, and I look forward to hearing from you at your earliest convenience. You may contact me at. So those kinds of things are what I want to see in that letter. When you're preparing for the job interview, you want to study job interviews, look online, see what people do. I have an assignment for you that asks you to respond to the top 50 questions that interviewers ask. And the reason I do that is because if you write down those answers and you really think about those answers, when you go to an interview, you're going to have something prepared. You're going to know what to say. You're not going to have to take an inordinate amount of time to think about something, how to answer that question. So it allows you to look like you're well prepared. Again, look at lists of common interview questions. Think about what you can offer the organization. This is so important when you go to an interview, because so often we approach an interview with the perspective of we really need this job or we really want this job, and that's important, but also you need to be interviewing the interviewer. You need to make sure that this is a place where you're going to fit and feel comfortable. So make sure that you have questions to ask your interviewer and that are going to help you kind of get the feel of the place, to make sure that you're going to fit in and be comfortable there. Rehearse the interview. You've got a list of questions, ask somebody to ask you those questions, and practice responding. It does not hurt to practice. It always makes you just that much more prepared. Again, before you go to the interview, consider these questions. When should you arrive for the interview? Make sure you know where it is. Make sure you know how long it's going to take you to get there. Make sure you know what traffic is going to be like and that you allow yourself enough time. Think about what you should wear. Depending on the type of job will depend on how you dress. You are applying for a construction job, it's probably quite appropriate to wear jeans. If you're applying for an office position, you probably want to dress nicely. Maybe a suit is overdressing, but you might want to wear nice slacks and a jacket, maybe a tie or not. If you're a female, you'd probably not wear a tie. I don't know, that's up to you. Think about your body language. If you sit there with your arms crossed across your chest, you look very closed and like you're not open and anxious, and you don't want to do that. Again, think about the questions you want to ask. Think about, don't talk forever. Make your answers short but precise and provide enough information that your answers are thorough. How do you know when the interviewer wants to end the interview? How can you read the interviewer's body language? And then can you get the interviewer's contact information, a business card, some kind of information, email address that you can send a note to say thank you for the interview. And then last but not least is write a follow-up letter, email, note, just a letter of appreciation for after the interview, or a letter accepting a job offer, a letter rejecting a job offer, or a letter acknowledging a rejection. All of those are completely appropriate. It's important to say thank you for the job interview. It's a polite thing to do. It's not required, but it certainly makes you look good. So you always want to end with or put your best foot forward, as the saying goes. So do what you can. Really the key to this whole process is planning ahead of time, being prepared, thinking through what it is you want to say, what it is you're looking for, and hopefully after you work through this unit you're going to have some good ideas of where you want to go and what you want to do. If you have any questions, please post them in the I Have a Question forum, or you can send me an email. Take care.